número de muertes por COVID-19 durante la época navideña se ha disparado de forma alarmante. Los contagios también siguen sumando mientras funcionarios y expertos siguen pidiendo a las familias más de una de reuniones para despedir el año. Una de cada 1,000 personas ha muerto en el país.
Impactan al mundo entero. Es la sepultura de víctimas por el coronavirus que no fueron reclamadas por familiares, en un estado que se convirtió en uno de los epicentros mundiales de la pandemia. La fosa está ubicada en la isla de Hart, en el extremo noroeste de la Gran Manzana, y recibe por día unos 24 cuerpos de fallecidos por coronavirus que no fueron reclamados en 14 días. Hasta hoy se contabilizan unos 160.000 casos confirmados en el estado de Nueva York, cuyo mayor foco se registra en la ciudad, donde se llegó a 90.000 infectados por coronavirus y 5.200 muertos. Estados Unidos ya ronda el 500.000 de contagiados y casi 18.000 fallecidos en todo el país.
It's estimated by every major study done, from the University of Washington to Columbia, that if in fact we wore masks, we could save between now and the end of the year 100,000 lives.
And avoid lockdowns?
And avoid lockdown, yes. You don't have to. That's why I said in my inaugural speech, I'm going to ask people to commit for 100 days to wear a mask. Not because I'm asking it for any reason to punish. This is not a political issue. It's become one. But if people do it for 100 days, in the middle of what will be still a raging crisis, and the vaccine is able to be distributed, they're going to see deaths drop off the edge. They're going to see hundreds of thousands of people not getting sick. And my hope is they'll be then inclined to say, okay, it's worth the patriotic duty to go ahead and protect other people. Thank you all so very much. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
1% of Americans over the age of 40 with one shot, and we especially need people under 40 to step up. Over 40 is doing much better. That's why today we're announcing a month-long effort to pull all the stops to free ourselves from this virus and get to 70% of adult Americans vaccinated. The private sector, and most importantly, the American people, to get to this 70% mark so we can declare our independence from COVID-19 and free ourselves from the grip it has held over us our lives for the better part of a year. Each of you has the power to help us gain this freedom as a nation. If you get a shot this week, you can be fully vaccinated by July 4th, by the week of July the 4th. And you can celebrate Independence Day free from fear or worry.
Listen, let's be clear. Every single event being held during this holiday season will have one or two uninvited, unwanted guests. Delta and or Omicron. One or both could be there. And I'm not saying this to scare, I'm just saying this for people to be aware.
People who are getting together and think that everything is safe, everybody can take their masks off. Omicron and Delta are coming to your party. Omicron and Delta are coming to your party. So you need to think twice about how many people will be gathered together.
Again, it goes back to the more mutations a variant has, the more immune protection that you need from it. So we're really encouraging everybody who's eligible. 16, 17-year-olds just became eligible last week. My 17-year-old got his booster over the weekend. And we're really trying to encourage people to get that boost to bolster their protection so that they're ready should they encounter the Omicron variant.
We're not going to eradicate this. We've only done that with smallpox. We're not going to eliminate that. That only happens with massive vaccination programs like we did with measles and with vaccines, but we ultimately will control it. And if you control it in a way, it's at such a low level and people are vaccinated and boosted, sooner or later, as we begin to live with it, what she was referring to is that virtually everybody is going to wind up getting exposed and likely get infected. But if you're vaccinated and if you're boosted, the chances of you getting sick
you're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
My plan will extend the vaccination requirements that I previously issued in the healthcare field. Already, I've announced we'll be requiring vaccinations at all nursing home workers who treat patients on Medicare and Medicaid because I have that federal authority. Tonight, I'm using that same authority to expand that to cover those who work in hospitals, home health care facilities, or other medical facilities. A total of 17 million healthcare workers. If you're seeking care at a health facility, you should be able to know that the people treating you are vaccinated. Simple, straightforward, period. Next, I will sign an executive order that will now require all executive branch federal employees to be vaccinated, all. And I've signed another executive order that will require federal contractors to do the same. If you want to work with the federal government and do business with us, get vaccinated. If you want to do business with the federal government, vaccinate your workforce.
And we're going to take it to the ultimate step, which is we're going to close the valve, all right? Because the rate of increase in the number of cases portends a total overwhelming of our hospital system. So we're going to put out an executive order today, New York State on pause, policies that assure uniform safety for everyone. Uniform safety for everyone. Why? Because what I do will affect you. And what you do will affect me. Talk about community and interconnection and interdependence. This is the very realistic embodiment of that. We need everyone to be safe, otherwise no one can be safe. Two basic rules. Only essential businesses will be functioning. People can work at home, God bless you. But only essential businesses can have workers commuting to the job or on the job. Second rule, remain indoors to the greatest extent to protect physical and mental health. On the businesses, on the valve, we reduced it to 50% of the workforce. We then reduced it to 75% of the workforce must stay home. And today we're bringing it to 100% of the workforce must stay home. These are non-essential services.
Just as booster shot availability expands to 70 million Americans across the country, tonight word of a potential fourth shot for one vulnerable group. The CDC now allowing people who are moderately and severely immunocompromised, about 3% of the population, to get another shot at least 6 months after completing their third mRNA vaccine dose.
You know, again, it goes back to the more mutations a variant has, the more immune protection that you need from it. So we're really encouraging everybody who's eligible. 16, 17-year-olds just became eligible last week. My 17-year-old got his booster over the weekend, and we're really trying to encourage people to get that boost to bolster their protection.
Are you concerned that Americans are just going to sort of get vaccine fatigue? I think there's a certain comfort level with the idea of the flu shot that you kind of knew up front you would probably be getting a new one every year. But this is unfolding in a way that I think can be a little confusing and exhausting to people.
I think you're absolutely right, Anne-Marie. I think it does feel both confusing and exhausting. Especially sometimes the language transmits a finality that is not really there. I mean, for a long time we called being fully vaccinated that one dose of J&J or the 2 doses of the mRNA vaccines. Fully vaccinated sounded so reassuring and definitive and complete. And then we started talking about boosters, and now we're talking about 4th dose. And the truth is that we're still in a very dynamic state of science around what it means to be as protected as we can against coronavirus. And so, the language will change. I do think at some point we'll reach a steady state where we simply understand what it is that we need to do for COVID, just the way that we know what it is that we need to do for flu, and that it will settle out. But in this dynamic period, it just feels like there is a fire hose of new information and considerations. So just a tough period that we need to kind of roll with the science, trust the experts, and just be willing to be flexible and dynamic in our thinking, because that is certainly what the virus is doing.
Are seeing that the ability of individuals who are infected through breakthrough infections, namely vaccinated people who ultimately get infected, that they are generally without symptoms or minimally symptomatic. However, it is clear that they are capable of transmitting the infection to uninfected individuals. And the data that they reported indicates that if you look at the level of virus in the nasopharynx of a person who's vaccinated and has a breakthrough infection, and compare that to the level of virus in the nasopharynx of an unvaccinated person who's infected, they're essentially equivalent, which would go along and underscore the fact that vaccinated people who do have a breakthrough infection are clearly capable of transmitting the infection to an uninfected person. Certainly, and I think to clarify it, because we don't want people to think that getting vaccinated, particularly with Omicron, which is a highly, highly transmissible variant, that people who are vaccinated and boosted will get infected. There's no doubt about that. Those are breakthrough infections. But the one thing that the vaccine does do is not only protect people against infection, but not completely, but it is very good at preventing you from hospitalizations and deaths.
But this is unfolding in a way that I think can be a little confusing and exhausting to people.